Well, a cardja, tá súlag an ggóil sibh go maith, tá mé géirí toisc the new an Aimsir Fháistineach. Right, Corey me two slash and shaw. We're going to break down the future tense to be able to talk about stuff that hasn't happened yet. Okay, so you're going to be talking here about things that will happen. Watch out for the word will. Future tense rule. You take the stem of the verb and you add the correct ending. You'll notice that the rule for the future tense is exactly the same as the rule for the present tense. The only thing that differs is the endings that you're choosing from. Okay, so the principle is basically the same, which is good news, but the list of endings that you're choosing from is different. Wee reminder what I mean by the stem of the verb. It's just the general verb to do something, exactly as you find it in the dictionary. You know, cur, to put, togue, to take, brish, to break, old, to drink. I could go on. That's what I mean by the stem of the verb. What you get in the dictionary before you do anything to it. It doesn't say who's doing the action. It doesn't say when it's getting done. It's just the verb in its simplest form. Okay, just like we had with the Aimsir Fháistineach, a kind of gach lá, broad verbs need broad endings and slender verbs need slender endings. And a wee reminder which ones are which. A, O and U are broad, I and E are slender. So if the verb you're handling, if the last vowel is A, O or U, then that's a broad verb and it's going to need a broad ending. If the last vowel is I or E, then that's a slender verb and it's going to need a slender ending. They have to match, they have to agree. Here's your slender endings for the one-syllable verbs. For I, you, he, she, we, use, and they. Okay, so you can see it's F-I-D-H the whole way down, except from which. Let's see how that compares with the broad ones. For I, you, he, she, we, use, they. And again, it's F-A-I-D-H this time the whole way down, except from which. Okay, so it might seem like, oh, there's all these verb endings to learn. How am I supposed to learn them all? But the fact that the only difference between the broad list and the slender list is an extra A, that should be helping you out. And the fact that they're all, apart from which for us or we, they're all the same, obviously that's going to help. Also, bear in mind that for the one-syllable verbs, the endings all begin with F. So think Aimsir Fháistineach, future, beginning with an F, and that'll keep you right. Couple of examples. Now, this is a broad example. I will clean the garage on Saturday morning. So what's my verb stem? Glan. It's broad because of the A, so I go ahead and I add my ending, F-A-I-D-H. Glanny me an garage ma Jean Sahern. I will clean the garage on Saturday morning. Bear with me, I'm just going to get myself a pointer. So glanny me, there's your broad stem, there's your broad ending. I will clean the garage. Now let's have a look at a slender one. Shrick is the verb to reach. I will reach the school at 9 tomorrow morning. So I took my stem, I decided it was slender because of the I, remember you're looking at the last vowel, and the slender ending for me is F-I-D-H. That's an example of a slender verb with a slender ending. Shricky me an sculler in Niamarach, I will reach the school at 9 tomorrow. I will reach. Aimsir Fháistineach. Okay, all that applies to one-syllable verbs like glan, ol, brish, cur. I mentioned several of them earlier. But with just like with the present tense, with the Aimsir Fháistineach, we have to deal with the two-syllable verbs later. First of all, let's have a look at a couple of examples. Now, have a look at the pictures. Can you figure out what the verb is I've used for each of these? One of them is broad and one of them is slender. The first of them is re. It's slender because of the I. So here's what re looks like in the present tense. I will run, you will run, he or she will run, we will run, yous will run, they will run. Okay, have a wee read down through it. See the F-I-D-H the whole way down, except from which. Now let's have a look at a broad one. Have you figured out the verb yet? It's fag, to leave, and it's broad because of the A. So I will leave, you will leave, he or she will leave, we will leave, yous will leave, speaking to more than one person, and they will leave. And there you have it. So have a wee look down through it. F-A-I-D-H the whole way down, except from which. And there's no H, there's no D apostrophe H. That's past tense territory, okay? So there's an example of how two one-syllable verbs behave in the future tense. One of them broad and one of them slender. Right, you will be aware from the Aimsir Lightrock that there are also 2-syllable verbs, and thankfully the rule is basically the same. Again, it's the same principle, but the endings you're choosing from are different. You've got different lists. Now, you have an extra wee job to do here. Just like with the Aimsir Lightrock, you have to create the stem from the infinitive before you can add the endings. To do this, you knock off either the IGH or the AIGH. So the likes of Ciani, Tussie, Ulvi, Craikney, they all have 2 syllables in them. Once you've knocked off the tail end of it, only then do you decide if the verb is broad or slender, depending on the last vowel in the stem. Let's see what I mean now. As always, a broad verb needs a broad ending and a slender verb needs a slender ending. That is standard. Here are your endings for the 2-syllable verbs. So, for I will, you will, he or she will, we will, yous will, and they will. Okay, have a look at how they compare. The broad ones are O fada IDH the whole way down, except from which, and the slender ones are EOIDH the whole way down, except from which. Whether it's the present tense or the future tense, the which is always built into the ending. Okay, it doesn't exist separately. Now, what was I going to say about that? 2-syllable verbs. Yeah, so once you've knocked off your tail end, your IGH and your AIGH, you figure out, am I handling a broad verb? If I am, I choose from this list. Am I handling a slender verb? If I am, I choose from that list. And you choose according to the person who will be doing the action. Okay? A couple of examples. Now, first of all, let's take an understanding for a minute on what I mean by the 4 groups of verbs in Irish, right? You've got 4 main groups of regular verbs. Have a look at how they compare. You have your 1-syllable broad, your 1-syllable slender, your 2-syllable broad, and your 2-syllable slender. So have a look at what I have put in bold. That's what makes it broad, slender, and you notice that all the 2-syllable broads end in AIGH, all the 2-syllable slenders end in IGH. Glan, Brish, Ulvi, Jeshi. Ulvi is to prepare, Jeshi is to fix. Scoop is to brush, Kai is to throw where smoke spend, Tussie to start, and Eerie to get up. Kier is to comb, lame, Brusty to rush, and Kivney is to remember. Ol, Shrick, Ciani, and Douchey. Shrick is to reach or to arrive. Douchey is to waken up. Now, have a look at what they all have in common in each of the lists. Can you see why they belong under each of these headings, right? Have a look down through them again. Togue, broad, 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 all 1 syllable. Slender, 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 all 1 syllable. All 2-syllable broad, AIGH the whole way down. Knock this off before you decide if it's broad or slender and go ahead and choose your ending. IGH the whole way down, that'll need knocked off again before you decide if it's broad or slender and add your correct ending for the stem. Right, couple of examples. Brusty to rush. I will rush, you will rush, he or she will rush, we will rush, yous will rush, they will rush. So the first thing I did to create my stem was to knock off the IGH. The wee bit I've left is broad because of the O, right? Then I go ahead and I add my correct 2-syllable ending because it was originally a 2-syllable verb. Have a look at a slender example here. Jeshi is to fix or to repair. I will fix, you will fix, he or she will fix, we will fix, yous will fix, and they will fix. Have a look down through it. First thing I did was knock off the IGH. The stem I'm left with, the last vowel in it is I. Okay, so from that I decide that it's a slender 2-syllable, well, it was a slender 2-syllable verb, so I have to add me 2-syllable endings. And there you have your EOIDH. And no sign of any H's or anything. A wee reminder, Buin Shin Lish and Aimsir Catcha. That's all about the Aimsir Catcha. And when we come on to it in 3rd year, the Mocneilach as well. So that's an example of 2-syllable verbs. So the principle, folks, thankfully, is much the same as the Aimsir Lightrock. Ag kaint we gach la or gach whatever. The only thing that varies is the endings you've to choose from. And you need to be able to visualize those endings and pick and choose from them according to the person who's doing the action. And that is your Aimsir Fháistineach. I'll have some assignments for you to do. Keep up with me on Google Classroom, alright? Gurmaigav, Svan Liv.